Infernal Blessings. We are back with another video. Alright, before we begin, just a couple quick announcements. As of the recording of this date, Monday, February 12th, 2024, the Doing Forecast Readings has officially closed. Okay, I'm not doing any more 2024 yearly forecast reading bookings. Okay, the window for that closed this past weekend. So the last set of yearly forecast readings that I booked, I'll be working on those that were booked this week. Okay, so that window's closed. So don't email me in reference to 2024 yearly forecast readings. That'll, again, when late November, early December rolls around, I'll start promoting them again for 2025. And that's why it's important, as I've been doing those the last few years, they've picked up and they've grown every year exceptionally. And this year, I ain't going to lie, I underestimated how many I would get. So it's been quite a few. So I would encourage you, when they do start for the upcoming 2025 year, I would book yours as early as you can. This way I can get you on the agenda and get you in there. All right. If you did book a yearly forecast reading, I should have got back to you this past week. I know a bunch of you, some of you guys rushed last minute, tried to get all you in there. At least get your dates booked. So they should all be complete by the end of this week. All right. But the other readings I do offer are just as good and just as helpful. So if you're interested in a telepathic demonic reading, an Egyptian oracle reading, a Santa Muerte and the spirits of the dead reading, a shadow work reading, which is a great place to start, right? When you're trying to figure out what you got going on with the shadow or the hidden self and what direction you should be going in as far as doing ritual work, or what direction you should be headed on your path. Deity reading to see what gods, goddesses, demons, and spirits walk with you to strengthen your relationship on this path, not to worship them. Or maybe you're interested in a spiritual consultation, which can be utilized for whatever you want to talk about. Maybe you got questions about the path. Maybe you want to focus on a particular area of interest, or maybe you got a situation you want to resolve. That's where a spiritual consultation would come in and be very helpful for you. So if you're interested in any of the aforementioned, shoot me an email, khnum19@gmail.com, and I will send you info on how to book a reading or a consultation. Please include in your emails the days and times you're available, a full weekly availability, not one day and one time, and also include the time zone you're in. It speeds up the process, all right? Okay, so any of those aforementioned, khnum19@gmail.com. All right, if you're interested in signing up for classes, the way to do that is to go to the official Primordial Chaos Patreon page, patreon.com/Baniti, BANITI tier 3. That's the tier you want to join. That will give you access to the 3 private classes I do every month on Patreon. And in addition, it will also give you access to the private group ritual we do at the end of the month. And keep in mind, when you join, you don't just get access to all the classes from the day you join moving forward. You get access to everything in the archive going back 4+ years. So you're getting over 4 years plus worth of classes with a bunch of ongoing series. Ancient Egyptian vampiric class, shadow work class, we're like 19 or 20 deep and counting. Kundalini meditation and awakening class, esoterical occult Bible study class, telepathic sorcery, Luciferian magic and self-mastery class. I think I said the ancient Egyptian vampiric class, Eastern occult left-hand path class, Sith dark side alchemy and philosophy class, necromancy and dark witchcraft. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I'm constantly adding new content, and I'm constantly adding new series of classes over the course of time. So definitely get in if you're looking to take your path to self-mastery to that next level. You also get all the access to the group ritual work, plus all the work, the ritual work and the work that's involved in the ongoing series of classes. Trust me. Again, I say this not out of arrogance, but out of confidence. For the money that I'm charging with all the material, all the knowledge and the information you're getting, I say this out of confidence, you're not going to get that anywhere else. Okay? I'm not trying to rape you. I'm not trying to, take you for an arm and a leg like some people want to do, is charge you an arm and a leg for shit. No, I'm not doing that. I'm giving you a very reasonable price. Check it out for yourself. You'll see. All right? Patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti, tier 3. That's the tier you want to join. Check us out on all of our social media pages. Instagram, Primordial Chaos 9, one word. Facebook, 2 words, Primordial Chaos. I upload all the new YouTube content on the Facebook page now. And also the TikTok page is up and running. Check us out on TikTok, Primordial Chaos. All right? Also, check out the Primordial Chaos podcast, which is available on Spotify and all major podcast platforms. You can now listen to a lot of this new content in MP3 format. You can listen to it while you're just sitting at home, relaxing. Maybe you're driving in the car. Maybe you're taking a walk in the park. Maybe you're exercising at your job. You can now listen to Primordial Chaos podcast in your earbuds, in your car, wherever you may be. All right? The direct link to the podcast, my contact email address for classes, all the links to the social media pages. All right? And also the direct link to the Primordial Chaos Patreon page to sign up for classes. All of that is in the description box of this video you are watching right now. All right? So that's how you get at me. All right, you see the title, Baron of the Cemetery in English, of the cemetery, right? Or Cemeterio, depends. You're talking about 21 divisions. If you're talking about Haitian voodoo or Voodoo, you might know him by other names, but I'm just going to simply put it in English across the board. Baron of the Cemetery, of the cemetery, okay? Baron of the Cemetery. Okay, as we know, the barons in voodoo or voodoo or the Ghedes, they are gatekeepers, right? A lot of you are familiar with Baron LaCroix, Baron Criminal, Baron Samdi. I mean, but Baron of the Cemetery, some consider in certain pantheons, and when you do your research, he is the head or the leader of the Ghede and guards the abode of the spiritual dead. Now, Baron of the Cemetery is a unique Baron, right? If you are familiar with Baron of the Cemetery, you'll be very it'll be very easy for you to and clear to understand what I'm talking about. But maybe you're not so familiar with the Barons and some of the voodoo deities or the voodoo deities. Baron of the Cemetery to me is unique because a lot of archetypes or deities, they usually have a functioning principle or characteristic about them that is very strong. Whether it's a warrior type of energy, maybe it's a road clearing energy, maybe it's a spirit or demon or god or goddess that works with some form of healing, road opener. Some of these barons and spirits and demons can be used for curse work, hex work, black magic, spells, all of the aforementioned, right? Now, the crazy thing, in my opinion, in my experience with Baron of the Cemetery, he can do all of those things. That's why I said that. Not that some of the other Ghede or Barons don't have the ability to do multiple or some of those things, but in my opinion, Baron of the Cemetery has the ability to do all of those works. Now, there's a very helpful, so let's talk about some of his characteristics and nature as a gateway keeper, as a Ghede, as the guardian of the graveyard or the cemetery, hence the name Baron of the Cemetery. And anytime you do graveyard or cemetery work, I always tell people when you enter into the graveyard or cemetery, show respect, right? I always like to walk in and acknowledge the mask of the adversary in the form of Legba. I don't care if you clap 3 times. I don't care if you bring a small bell, toll it, do some form of acknowledgement. Let the spirits of the dead know you are entering their domain. Show that respect, not worship. Not worship. When you're working with dark spirits, when you're working with demons and you're working with spirits like this in voodoo or voodoo, or if you're working with left-hand path spirits like Bilal, or you're working with Naama, Lilith, any aspects of any spirits or demons that their energy is connected to the graveyard, show respect and reverence, not worship. We don't worship shit on this path. So I always tell people it's just a respectful practice. Before you enter, let the spirits of the dead know you are entering their domain, because guess what? At some point you will be part of that domain. So that you're actually doing this in essence for yourself. I just want to be clear on that. So I always let them know I'm entering, and when you're done doing whatever work it is you're doing at the graveyard or the cemetery, also when you step out, acknowledge them, thank them for their time in working with you, and let them know you're departing. And when it's time for you to communicate with them again, you will acknowledge them, okay? It's part of what I also like to call ancestral reverence or veneration. When you venerate something or you give in reverence, you're acknowledging an aspect of something in it and giving that respect through that reverence or acknowledgement. Okay? Not worshiping and groveling and all that other stuff. We don't do that stuff. Okay? So Baron of the Cemetery is considered by most to be the head of the Ghede. He is the king or the ruler of the abode of the dead. And I know when I'm working with this pantheon, and if I'm entering the cemetery, I kind of put him at the head, right? I kind of communicate with him. So there can be a wise, mystic, very helpful aspect of Baron of the Cemetery who can give you guidance. You might be struggling to get clarity on certain answers. So I'm going to start with the more laid-back energies and frequencies of Baron of the Cemetery, and then get into more of the darker, intenser sides in this short, quick tutorial, right? As you know, these videos are about 20 to 30 minutes for the most part. All right, so he can be used as that elder, that guide, that spirit that can impart knowledge, wisdom, and a greater understanding upon you if you feel like you're struggling with something in your life. So creating an invocation to Baron of the Cemetery, maybe working with his sigil. Maybe it's a simple invocation with an offering. And maybe you just need to invoke his energy because you need clarity on a certain thing. Okay? Then you can work with Baron of the Cemetery as a road opener. Now remember, Ghedes and spirits of the dead, any gatekeeper type of deity is always great to use as road openers, right? Any of the Loa that are road openers are great to use, as we know, Legba, etc. Any of these guardians of the crossroads, right? Especially when you're working with the cemetery or graveyard work, they're very powerful spirits, because if you understand crossroad deities, which are gateway deities, and they bridge the gap of this realm and the realm, I like to call it, of eternal life, not really the realm of the dead, but you know what I'm talking about when I say that. There's energy at those points. So this is why you'll see with a lot of crossroad deities, work, when it's to be completed per se or finished, it's usually left at a crossroad, the 4 points, because those 4 points represent a conductor or a flow of, when we talk about quantum physics, the square or the 4 corners. This is why when you look at Papa Legba's sigil, for an example, some of the Ghede, or when you look at, say, Santa Muerte's sigil, there's what appears to be the cross, right? And a lot of the barons have the cross associated with them. Now, it has nothing to do with Christianity, contrary to what people might think on the surface, and say, well, why in voodoo or voodoo? Now, don't get me wrong, in modern day terminology and depiction, they will depict it sometimes as a Christian cross. But I can tell you this, that cross you're seeing, for an example, with Baron of the Cemetery or any of the barons, it has nothing to do with Christianity. Trust me when I'm telling you. Most gateway deities has that sigil part of that symbol and part of their sigil, which appears to be a cross. Again, Santa Muerte 2, Legba, etc. What it represents is the 4 cardinal points. The power and energy of the spirit from the 4 cardinal points. The north, south, east, and west. So when you're working with Baron of the Cemetery, him being king of the abode of the dead, or the Ghede king of the dead, you are when you're tapping into him in the cemetery, and you're invoking him from the 4 cardinal points of the realm of the dead: north, south, east, and west, because he rules each quadrant, right? So depending on what type of work you're going to do, the sigil takes on even different meanings and perspectives, especially when you're working with it more from an esoterical occult perspective. Now, Baron of the Cemetery, when you're tapping into him on a mental level, be prepared for the influx of energy when you are invoking his presence and his spirit. Now, when it comes to spirit possession, some will tell you that when you're possessed by Baron of the Cemetery, he doesn't say much when he comes. Sometimes he's almost comes when an individual gets possessed by Baron of the Cemetery, he almost seizes up, becomes paralyzed, and some say he can sometimes foam at the mouth. His possession is a little different than other Ghedes or spirits in the Voodoo pantheon, right? It's interesting if you've ever witnessed it. And there are forms of communication there that happen just like it does with any other spirit that mounts an individual or possesses them, whatever term you want to use. But this is another thing that makes him different from others, where some just want to, when an individual is in full possession of Baron of the Cemetery, they feel like if they can just come up to him and shake his hand, that his energy and his presence and his power is imparted upon them. There's some theories of that. I've seen that in certain rituals, etc. Whereas like with Baron Samedi, it's similar, where there's a ritual with Baron Samedi of saluting the dead, they call it, right? Where Baron Samedi is on, it's reenacted where he is kind of rolled up. You'll see it in like, what I guess you can call it a blanket or a sheet, like he's being buried, and then he's unveiled and people walk over him and they shake his hand while he's in possession, and that's called saluting the dead in certain systems. So the barons are unique in the sense that Baron of the Cemetery is unique in the sense that, again, he has multifaceted purposes, in my opinion, more so than others. So we discussed he can be used as a road opener. He can be used as a guide, a spirit guide for assistance, help, and wisdom, right? Baron of the Cemetery can also be propagated for materialistic things. This is facts, okay? If you are doing prosperity work, he can be used for that. This is what makes him so diverse, right? So a lot of the worldly things, the materialistic things, and some of the mundane problems in your life that connect your mundane world to your spiritual world, Baron of the Cemetery can be used to work with that, right? Let's talk a little bit real quick about his darker side, or his darker nature, okay? Just as he can be used for those type of works, because he is a wise elder and you're dealing with a very vast amount of knowledge, spiritual power, and magic with Baron of the Cemetery. Do not underestimate Baron of the Cemetery. A very volatile spirit that can shift gears on you quick if you don't understand his function and his purpose. He also can do very dark works of sorcery and black magic. Okay? He can be done for curse work. Let's just say you're trying to curse somebody for whatever reason that may be, and hopefully you're utilizing it for productive reasons. Say you're in danger and you need to put a curse or a hex on somebody. He can be used for very destructive curse work if need be. He can be used for love spells. Yes. Graveyard work, connecting him to the cemetery and the graveyard through love spells. Hexes, curses, works of destruction. Burying, quote on things, burying situations with him. I'm not going to get into that, but burying situations with him at the graveyard. It goes a little more in depth, but I'm just giving you a quick tutorial. So here we have a baron who, the way he functions is very fluid. And this is why, and depending on tradition and houses you may talk to, different people on the path, there's going to be a difference of perspective, but a lot of what I'm saying you'll see to a degree, or most of what I'm saying you'll see people will be in alignment and current with. But maybe in their own, they might have a little different of a method of explaining it or connecting. But that again comes from coming through different systems, right? That's where that comes from, and that's it. So you make that choice, and you figure out if you do. It's more important of understanding the function of any spirit, Loa, Ghede, or any demon or spirit that you're working with, because understanding the function and the purpose is going to determine how effective your magic is when you're doing magic with that spirit. Okay? In Baron of the Cemetery, because he's so diverse in what he functions and how he operates, you really need to do your due diligence and your research if you're going to connect with Baron of the Cemetery. Okay? I definitely approach him as king of the abode of the dead / graveyard and cemetery. It's the presence that I've connected with 100%. Okay? I keep that acknowledgement in my work. Okay? And I know the power of what that particular spirit is capable of. Okay? So part of it's going to be your personal connection and how you connect. You might have a slightly different way. Okay? But that's neither here nor there. It's about doing your due diligence and having a good understanding when you're working with gateway deities, spirits of the dead, spirits that can do dark necromantic work, sorcery. Any of that type of work should be, in my opinion, I don't take any of that for a joke. Treat it with the utmost respect. Approach it with wisdom, that knowledge and that understanding, and have that respect, right? Not fear, not grovel worship, that type. Walk side by side with the spirit. Show it honor, show it respect, because when you show it honor and respect, it's going to work more effectively and walk side by side with that energy. All right. So anyway, long story short, I just wanted to do a quick tutorial to give you an understanding of Baron of the Cemetery. I want to start throwing some of the Loa and the Voodoo deities in here and start discussing some of them, because they are a part and function of African witchcraft, sorcery, and black magic in general, right? And it just doesn't cease to, well, it never ceases to amaze me why a lot of these woke systems that so-called talk about African traditional religions, that why the power of black magic and voodoo is not talked about. Because understanding that power could bring about such an immense change that a lot of the existing problems, issues that plague this world could be resolved. Now, I know some people don't use it for productive reasons. I think the situation determines what kind of reason you use it for. It's not about good or bad. It's about being that magician and know what forces you need to tap into for the right moment and the right work that needs to be done. So people used it more responsibly, let's say, as opposed against each other. I mean, I've always said this. When you look at the country of Haiti, right? Contrary to belief, people think not everybody in Haiti is poor. There's some very upper class, very wealthy areas of Haiti, but not to get into the whole historical aspect of Haiti, but we see how it's used against each other as far as beneficial. Not all, but there are a lot of, just like in America, there's corruption within the government. It's when you go to some of them countries over there in the Caribbean, it can be even worse. Corruption is at an all-time high. It's a whole nother story for another day. But anyway, hopefully this tutorial on Baron of the Cemetery helped you out. Maybe gave you a little information you did or did not know. And if this motivates you to do more research on Baron of the Cemetery or possibly work with him, again, just do your due diligence, show that reverence and respect, and may the Baron salute you if he sees fit. All right. Other than that, if you need to reach out to me, again, for a spiritual reading or a consultation, my contact email address, along with the direct link to the podcast, the Primordial Chaos Podcast, the link to the social media pages, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, okay, the direct link to the Primordial Chaos Patreon page to sign up for classes on my Patreon page. Everything I was talking about in the beginning of the video, all those links and contacts are in the description box of this video you are watching right now. That's how you get at me, all right? I will see some of you this week in our ritual that we have this upcoming week, which is the ritual of the chaotic black sun. Won't get into that here. So we're preparing to do that ritual for this month. So I'll see some of you there. Infernal blessings, and we'll talk soon. I'm out of here.